these attacks xenophobic or Afrophobic? And do foreign nationals enjoy constitutional rights? How will these attacks impact on Durban's chances of hosting the 2022 Commonwealth Games? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. Recent attacks against foreign nationals in KwaZulu-Natal, reminiscent of the infamous 2008 xenophobic attacks, have raised concerns around the issue of undocumented foreign nationals in the country. While different opinions are being raised on the underlying causes of these attacks, they have spread from some KZN townships to the Durban city centre, resulting in the SAPS deploying 800 police officers around the city to restore peace. Meanwhile, President Jacob Zuma has condemned these attacks and has tasked 3 cabinet ministers to bring them to an immediate end. A reminder that this is a live program. You can know your views on the following numbers: 011 714 6841 or 6842 or 6843. 011 714 6841 42 or 43. My guest in studio, David Court, is from the Lawyers for Human Rights, and Roshan Dadu from the Consortium for Refugees and Migrants in South Africa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me start with you. The first question, did King Goodwill Zwelithini ignite this?
I don't think that he ignited it. I think that his comments were inflammatory. I think they brought about sentiments of xenophobia, but those sentiments have been underlying for a very long time. You mentioned the violence that occurred in 2008, but there's been a constant stem of violence that has happened since then against foreign nationals, shop owners, during service delivery protests, and many people have died since then. So while he didn't start it, I think his comments were inflammatory, and he should be controlling what he's saying better.
What do you mean exactly?
I think it's the responsibility of every government leader to be aware of the tensions that are existing at the moment, particularly the fact that we've been seeing a lot of tension since the attack in Soweto in January, and all government leaders, be it the king or the elected government officials, must be aware of what they're saying and how it could impact how the public is reacting to these threats.
Well, he's not elected, so...
He's still a government leader, though, and he's still a leader of this country, and he has to be responsible in the way that he's making comments.
Okay. Now, is that the view of foreign nationals, that he didn't?
Well, I think they would agree that the comments are irresponsible and that a leader of any group in society should be cognizant of what is going on around them and not make irresponsible comments that are likely to provoke an already existing situation where people feel hostile or are already sending threats that they might commit violent acts. And also, I mean, leaders are important. We've long called on the political leadership to take a firm stand against xenophobia. And finally, we're very happy that maybe pressure of South Africans who don't think that foreign nationals should all go home, who don't agree with the violence, has come to bear, because the president has now twice at least said on television that he condemns the violence, that foreigners do have rights to remain in our country, and that we should all abide by the laws of this country.
Would it make things better if, for instance, the king himself was to come back and say, stop this?
Yes, I think so. I mean, no one's too big to apologise if they've said something that's provoked other people, particularly when it's resulted maybe or contributed to resulting in the deaths of people. So I think it would. I think it's always useful to have clear statements from leaders that people respect within the country.
That's a debate which I'm not so sure if we're supposed to even, entertain. Why are the attacks happening? Are they justifiable to a point where we need to look for reasons?
Well, I think there are many reasons why the attacks are happening. Again, as David said, it's been going on since 2008. I mean, there are underlying causes, of course, as we know, socioeconomic issues. Often it's service delivery protests where, as research has shown, often when they're not allowed to protest outside the municipality, where the police turn marches back within communities, violence breaks out, and it's often the foreign nationals there that are targets.
And perhaps from the lawyers of human rights point, what is going to happen? There's a question that we asked here, do foreign nationals enjoy constitutional rights? Well, probably the answer is yes. And how do you ensure that they do enjoy this right?
Well, the Constitutional Court has said several times in many different judgments that the Constitution does apply to foreign nationals, in as far as certain rights are not reserved for citizens. So the rights are reserved for citizens, for example, the right to a passport or the right to vote. Other rights, the rights that say that everybody has the right to human dignity, for example, those are rights that apply to everybody. How do we ensure that it is respected and that people are able to access their rights? That's another way that government can react. They can be proactive in ensuring that people whose rights are being violated, for example, are able to have recourse to the courts, that the police will take their complaint seriously, that the National Prosecuting Authority will proceed with trials of people who have been convicted or at least accused of committing violence against people. That's just one way in which government would be able to ensure that people's constitutional rights are being respected. And
does this apply regardless of their status, whether they are here legally or illegally?
The law has to take its course, and the Immigration Act does say that if you're not lawfully in the country, you can be detained and deported from the country. However, that doesn't affect your basic rights. It doesn't affect your human dignity. It doesn't affect the way in which you're able to access courts, for example, if your rights are being seriously violated. Nor does it stop you from being a witness in a trial, for example, if you are going to lay a complaint with the police. So the Constitution does apply equally to documented and undocumented people. And what we've seen with the recent violence is that the violence is happening indiscriminately of whether you are documented or not. So it's attacking foreign nationals who do have documents, also attacking people who don't. And so that's not really the distinction that we're seeing in these attacks.
What are these unique reasons that would only apply to African foreign nationals?
Well, I don't think it does. I mean, particularly in the Soweto attacks in January, there were also Bangladeshi and Pakistani shopkeepers who were the targets. So I don't think it is only applying to African nationals. I think probably there are more African national migrants in the country.
Yes.
So in that sense, they are seen as the major threat or target. But I don't think it's something that is specifically only applying to African nationals.
Now, what do you say to those foreign nationals when things are like this? Do you say to them, go back home and assess the situation? Maybe you'll come back after a month or so?
No, we say we're going to stop this. We say this is not the South Africa that most of us want to present to visitors, to migrants, to refugees, to investors. No, we say stay here and help us to fight this. I mean, it's very hard, obviously, when people are being killed. But I still don't believe it's what the majority of South Africans want to see happening in the country. Nor indeed, I'm sure, does the government, because it does become an international embarrassment as well, particularly when we're, for instance, chairing the AU, or we're trying to get, as was mentioned, international sporting events in our country. We hosted the World Conference Against Racism in 2001 in Durban, a huge gathering of leaders from all around the world. All the major states were there. And now we haven't even, as South Africa, adopted our own national action plan, which was one of the outcomes, which would give us a policy framework, not only against xenophobia, but also racism, other related intolerances, such as attacks on the LGBTI community. So we're really falling behind in helping ourselves to present the image that we all want to of our country.
Okay. Hold the thought there. We have to take a quick break. When we return and continue this discussion. This is a live program. Please get in touch. Let's hear what you've got to say. That's question time.
Gluurmerken zijn kapst. Ja, de park is er. Kom.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today, David Court, Lawyers for Human Rights, and Roshan Dadu, Consortium for Refugees and Migrants in South Africa. Now, this seems to be getting quite more serious because there are threats now that are being made. There's a lot of word going around, whether through social media, that the likes of Boko Haram are now, jumping into the defense of foreign nationals.
Well, worldwide terrorism is a reality, and governments have taken measures to increase security measures to ensure that groups like Boko Haram are not able to spread their violence to other places. There have been condemnation from other African nations, particularly from the government of Nigeria in the past, which has said that the way in which Nigerians in particular are treated in South Africa has been very unfair. And they called on the government to make sure that the way in which they treat foreign nationals is improved. Okay. Today, the African Union, Dr. Dlamini Zuma herself, said that she condemned the xenophobic violence as well. So internationally, we have been criticized for the way in which we've been treating foreign nationals and the way in which the government has reacted to the xenophobic violence that we have seen. And I don't think, however, that the security measures that have been put into place won't protect us. I think that obviously that's where government has left.
All right. I think we've got a caller. Joe is in Ladysmith. Welcome to Question Time, Joe. Joe? Joe, you are live on air. Okay, we seem to have lost Joe, but please let us hear from you. Perhaps you may be in an area where this has been happening, the marches down there in Durban, displacements around Germiston, the Primrose areas, and Johannesburg City Centre. Perhaps you are a victim or somebody who may have been perpetrating these attacks. We would love to hear from you. What are your views on this matter? 011-714-6841, 42 or 43. Is this current unrest, do you think it's going to have a bearing on, for instance, the 2022 Commonwealth Games bid?
Well, I think it presents, as I've said, a very negative image internationally. And so if we are looking to host major international events, I'm sure it does start to cause concern amongst the organisers and also the countries participating. And that's why, we think we really have to take this seriously. And where there are threats made about violence breaking out, it must be taken seriously. And we really need to start to act preemptively and not reactively to this kind of threats and the underlying attitudes of people, to start to challenge those, whether that's through programs, educational programs in schools, through community dialogues, through trainings of people who provide services of what the basic rights are for non-nationals in the country. But all of those things were proposed in the Human Rights Commission report after the 2008 violence. Okay. And most of them haven't been taken up, or they started and were then dropped. So we really think this shows the importance of looking again at those recommendations, updating them, and really making it part of our work as a nation, as part of nation building and social cohesion.
All right. Tunde, you are in Pretoria. Tunde?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, you are live.
Hello? Yeah, please, I wanted to ask, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, please, I wanted to ask, can you hear me? Yeah, I wanted to ask, what is the solution that the government of South Africa is doing to the xenophobic that is going on in Durban? And because I was watching the South African parliamentary today, there's nobody, none of the honorable in the House discuss or talk about the xenophobic attack that is going on presently.
No, but you are not telling the truth there, Tundi. Almost all political parties in parliament condemned that today.
Yeah, because... Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, because I was watching it, and maybe by the time I turn it on, nobody has already raised any question about it. And what is the solution that the South African government are doing to it right now?
Okay. All right, thanks, Tunde. Well, political organizations came up quite strongly worded against this today. I don't think Tunde was watching at that particular time. But to what extent does this condemnation, verbal condemnation by political parties, how does that help to quell these tensions?
What I think we need is for all South Africans to come together and say that we don't accept this violence. So we don't accept this as part of South African culture. And having all the political parties saying the very same thing reflects that. And hopefully that message will carry sway with the public at large.
Okay. But does anybody care to know why the perpetrators are doing what they are doing? Because yes, we're saying, it's not good and all that, but there are people who are actually doing this. Is there anybody who cares to hear what they are saying?
Well, I think that it's a very complex situation, in that the government has been giving inconsistent messages regarding xenophobia, Afrophobia, whether it's just plain criminality, because we've had a lot of denial of the fact that this is xenophobia, that it's something more underlying than simply organizations criminal organizations taking advantage of the situation.
Okay.
And I think we need to have a more consistent message. We need to explore, what does xenophobia mean? What does Afrophobia mean? What are these different, what are the root causes of these tensions? And why are we able to allow criminal organizations to take advantage of these situations when these underlying tensions are so clear?
Today's march in Durban, there were people who were opposed to it very clearly, There were some altercations with the police as well. They are still within the city center as we speak. So somehow we need not be in denial that there are no people who support this.
No, I think it's a very good point, and I think that's one of the things that we definitely do want to do and need to do, is talk to people. Why are people doing this? Let's hear. Let's not be shutting off anybody's comments on this issue, because we need to engage and we need to find each other, and the only way we can do that is through a non-violent way of trying to understand each other. So where there have been community dialogues, that has often been very helpful, where communities after attacks have discussed amongst themselves and with local leaders and ward councillors and so on, do we want to invite these people back again into our communities, and have that debate, and then decide on a way in which they're going to make people who come back feel more safe in their neighbourhoods. But definitely we need to have that conversation, and we need to know, why are people taking out their frustrations, if that's one of the causes on non-nationals? What are the misconceptions often about non-nationals being in the country? Definitely, it's a very good point.
Okay. Thabo is in Mpumalanga. Thabo, welcome.
Hello?
Yes?
Ayathanda ngoba balaleli. Umbuzo wami ngicela ukuthi i-South African I pick up online lana nanti ngiyabuka emashop bayisebenzela yonke into bazenzela abafundi abachasha umphakathi wa South Africa, yabona. So that is why part of South Africa so phakama igcina ubalise kanje, yabona.
Okay, thanks very much, Thabo. Well, Thabo is effectively saying something to the effect that people are doing as they please, and this is an attitude which those people who are victims today are faced with on a day-to-day basis. As lawyers, you are somewhere in the offices waiting for cases to come, and you go and present them to the courts and all that, but they are facing the likes of Thabo every day.
One of the problems is that many people are facing problems accessing the police, accessing courts, accessing their rights. It's not just foreign nationals. And when we separate foreign nationals from the other community members who are having the same problems, accessing the police and other government institutions, it really shows that this is really a community problem, and that the community in general is facing difficulty in accessing these services. And so a criminal justice system that's under siege at the moment by a lack of resources and political interference is not helping with access for anybody.
Okay, hold the thought there. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll wrap up the program. This is Question Time. Don't go away.
Media Monitor. The title says it all.
We do have a dilemma here because Lesotho is a sovereign country. I don't think it is the obligation of South Africa's media to even tell the people of Lesotho what's going on in Lesotho.
Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. That's Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali.
Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. I guess David Cott is from the Lawyers for Human Rights and Roshan Dadus from the Consortium for Refugees and Migrants in South Africa. Million, you're calling us from Johannesburg?
Yes, I'm calling from Johannesburg.
Yes.
CBD.
Okay.
Yes, I've got 16 years in South Africa. So far, what I know is the South African people, they are very good. I know I've been on the streets in 2099, but after 2008, why? Why these things happen? Why black people killing black people? Why attacking like this? If there is an economical problem, why the government doesn't solve that? They can't even limit the foreigner access about the job, about the study and everything. The government doesn't protect us. I don't know why. Why the people are above the law?
Have you had any interactions, Million, with South African nationals?
Yes, they've been. No, I'm a Ethiopian national.
Okay.
I've got a permanent residence in South Africa. Yes.
Do they care that you've got a permanent residence or what?
Why the other political party using these things like just taking out the frustration with existence, which is ANC. We see so many things. What's going on in the media, what's going to happen in the location, and then what's going to be in the other side is different. But the thing is, it's a human life. I'm seeing my brothers are just burning with a tire and everything. It's a human being. Why they do that? Why? Why for all us? It's 21 years democracy. Before 20 years, 25 years back, they used to get killed on apartheid time. Why they are killing people now?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much for the call, Million. Quite a frustrated, South African, as he says. Perhaps those are the questions that people are asking themselves. Why are we being targeted as victims? Because, like I said, I don't think there would be any reasons enough to justify the amount of hatred and violence that is being meted out to foreign nationals.
Well, I think one of the definitions of xenophobia is fear of foreigners, and I think often if you're in a community that's economically not doing well and someone comes in and maybe seems to be starting a business, whoever they are, you might feel fearful, especially if they're coming from other countries with other languages or other religions, and you might not understand and feel threatened. I think that, that there are real reasons for that. But I think the response should not be the one that we're seeing. And I think if we were more aware of the rights that non-nationals have in the country and why people come here, we're part of the world. We're looking at hosting international events. We're part of a global world. We can't cut ourselves off. We can't build a huge wall and say we're just South Africa, no one must come here. We're one of the major tourist destinations of the world. So I think we need to start to find ways of learning and understanding, and as we build our nation, because we're not a built nation yet too, but as part of that we need to consider that we're now in a globalized world and we need to include others within that conversation.
Okay. And Francis, it would appear that the xenophobia has affected business as well. How has business reacted in the past 24 hours, or even today in particular?
Well, and Paul, we now know that South African workers, business people, anyone travelling in Africa is more vulnerable because of what's happening. Sasol confirming today that Mozambican workers were protesting the presence of South African workers at one project. So that's one incident that we know know of, and we don't want to blow this out of proportion. We don't want to encourage anything, and I just hope that Africans out there will know that most South Africans condemn this, that we do not. We want to protect the dignity and the safety of foreign workers in this country, but we do have to look at that security risk. We'll be doing that in Business Review shortly.
Thanks very much, Francis. And that brings us to the end of our show today. That was question time for today. A big thank you to our guest and to you for watching the show. We welcome your feedback via email. questiontime@sabc.co.za is our email address. And our Twitter handle @questiontime24 from me and the crew, rather. Have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.